What if the last words you ever exchanged with a legend weren't about fame, money, or the past, but about something far more human? Imagine the phone going quiet, the silence stretching just a little too long, and later realizing that conversation would be the final thread connecting two icons who helped change rock history forever. This is the haunting moment Kiss fans around the world can't stop talking about. The final conversation Peter Criss says he shared with Ace Frehley, a moment filled with reflection, unresolved emotion, and the weight of a lifetime of music. For decades, Peter Criss and Ace Frehley weren't just bandmates. They were brothers in chaos, creativity, and rebellion. Together, along with Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley, they formed Kiss, one of the most explosive and influential rock bands the world has ever seen. But behind the makeup, the pyrotechnics, and the screaming crowds, there were real relationships, real arguments, and real love that only people who've survived the same storms can understand. According to Peter Criss, the last time he spoke to Ace Frehley wasn't dramatic or staged. There were no cameras, no crowds, and no roaring guitars in the background. It was simply two men talking, two survivors of a wild era, sharing words that now echo with painful significance. Peter has since described that conversation as calm, emotional, and strangely final, even though neither of them knew what was coming next. Peter recalled that Ace sounded tired, but thoughtful. Not defeated, just reflective. The kind of tone that comes when someone has lived hard, loved deeply, and is finally taking a moment to look back. They didn't rehash old fights or reopen wounds from the band's turbulent years. Instead, the conversation drifted naturally, touching on memories, music, and the strange journey that had tied their lives together forever. What makes this moment so powerful is what wasn't said. Peter didn't claim there were grand goodbyes or prophetic last words. In fact, he said that's what hurts the most. The call ended the way so many do, with an assumption that there would always be another chance to talk again. Another call, another laugh, another memory added to the pile. But that chance never came. For fans, Ace Frehley has always been the spaceman, the mysterious, guitar-slinging rebel whose solos helped define Kiss's sound. But to Peter Criss, Ace was more than a persona. He was the guy who stood beside him on stages around the world, the guy who shared hotel rooms, exhaustion, addiction battles, and moments of pure magic when everything clicked just right. That shared history made their final conversation feel heavier in hindsight. Peter has admitted that after hearing of Ace's reported passing, that last phone call replayed in his mind over and over again. Every pause, every word, every missed opportunity to say more. It's a feeling many people can relate to. The regret of thinking there will always be more time, until suddenly there isn't. Their relationship, like the band itself, was never simple. Kiss was built on ambition, ego, and raw talent, and those forces sometimes collided in painful ways. There were years of distance, disagreements, and public tension. But time has a way of softening edges, and according to Peter, that final conversation felt free of bitterness. It felt like two old friends who had finally laid their armor down. Peter Criss has often spoken about how age changes perspective. The things that once felt unforgivable start to feel small. The arguments that once seemed worth everything begin to fade in importance. In that final call, Peter says he sensed that shift in Ace, a quiet acceptance of the past, and a gratitude for having lived it at all. For Kiss fans, this revelation hits especially hard because it humanizes legends who often feel untouchable. These weren't just rock gods frozen in time by album covers and concert footage. They were people who aged, reflected, and carried emotional scars, just like everyone else. Knowing that even icons leave things unsaid adds a bittersweet layer to their legacy. Peter has since said that he wishes he had told Ace how much their journey meant to him, not just musically, but personally. How surviving those early years together forged a bond that could never truly be broken, no matter how far apart they drifted later in life. That unspoken gratitude now lives in memory rather than words. The story also serves as a quiet warning, one that doesn't need to be shouted. Say what you need to say while you still can. Reach out. Make the call. Don't assume tomorrow is guaranteed, even for legends who seem larger than life. Peter's reflection isn't about guilt, it's about awareness and the fragile nature of time. As fans continue to celebrate Ace Frehley's influence on rock music, Peter Criss's story adds emotional depth to that celebration. It reminds us that behind every iconic riff is a human being with friendships, regrets, and moments they hold onto when the noise finally fades. In the end, that final conversation wasn't about death, it was about life, about everything they had survived together, and everything they had created. And perhaps that's why it still matters so much. Because sometimes, the most powerful goodbye is the one you don't realize is a goodbye at all. And as the echoes of Kiss's music continue to thunder through generations, that last quiet conversation between Peter Criss and Ace Frehley lingers, unheard by the world, but forever etched into rock history.